Okay, I have 1 o'clock, so I'm going to get us started, I believe. This is Ed Crow. Thanks for joining me today on this, what is today? Thursday? On Thursday. Appreciate it. Couple things. I know I already repeated to a few of the people that were on earlier, but we do these webinars usually every Wednesday and Thursday. We're kind of easing into them this year after AEP, so just Thursday this week. Next week we will probably do Wednesday and Thursday. We do them on different topics. I always say this, nobody ever takes me up on it. If you have any topics you ever want us to go over on a webinar, please just send us suggestions. We're happy to have them. Always looking for content to go over that agents find helpful. If you have questions during the webinar, just send them in to the questions section. I'm not smart enough, unfortunately, or skilled enough, I guess, to run the webinar and answer questions at the same time, so I will try to answer them for you at the end. Regarding recordings, we record every webinar we do. We put them all on YouTube, so if you want to watch a webinar, you just go to YouTube. You can just Google if you want, YouTube Crow and Associates. All our webinars are up there. But we will also, everybody who registers for the webinar will email you a copy of the recording. So for future reference, if we're doing a webinar on either Wednesday or Thursday at 1 o'clock and you can't make the time, it's not a good time for you, just register for it and you'll get the recording. Okay, I think having said that, we'll get started. So today, just one last thing. The webinar today should run about 15 or 20 minutes. It won't be a half hour. So today we're going to talk about Medicare sales, generating, building your book after AEP. So I'm using this opportunity to talk about a couple things. Reviewing results of AEP, so this last one we just went through, and then strategies for OEP and SEP. I was also started off as an individual agent. At my peak, I had my book right around 1,500 policies. So I've been through a lot of AEPs, and some of this is taken from the things I wish I had done or should have done better. And also, obviously, I talk to agents all day, so just kind of best practices, some practices not so good that we're going to go over. So today we'll talk about reviewing the results of AEP. Surprisingly, most people don't do that. I think it's one of those things where you get through AEP and it's just too hard to stomach to look back and see what you did or didn't do well, but we'll talk about that. Having goals, retention, and making improvements for the following AEP. It's never too early to start thinking about next year's. And then we'll talk about sales strategies for 2023, determining your source of marketing, talk about both your main strategy for marketing and the passive approaches. They all add up ultimately. And then lastly, touch on when it's time to start getting help with a book. I usually find it's around 500 to 700 members. If you're doing it, if you're a sole practitioner with no help, you'll probably experience what I did, where once you get around 600-700 policies on the books, you'll start to lose your mind if you don't have help. And we all tend to follow the same pattern with that. Most of us anyway. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Okay, AEP results. One of the biggest things is most of us get through AEP, and I don't know if it's maybe just being just worn out from AEP, but most of us don't take time to review our results during the AEP. So, I definitely think you should. I know there were years where I didn't. I just got through it and was like, it's over with. I'm going to start selling some new business for OEP and SEP, and I'm just not going to review how I did. And it's a mistake. I can tell you, we all, most of us have made it. But you really should take time to look back and say, what was my strategy going into this, and how did it work? Did it work out to my liking? Did I even have a strategy? I know a lot of people go into AEP without really a goal. So, there's kind of two schools of thought here with AEP. Is some people go into AEP just writing as much business as humanly possible. Others go in, if they have a decent sized book, they'll go into it thinking I'm going to retain my book first, and then I'll write what I can. And then others, a lot of us, just have no plan at all going into it. So really, I would say if you're one of those who didn't have a plan, I would I would say that you should start planning for next year already, going into AEP, and have a strategy going into it and have a focus going into it. The other thing you really need to do after AEP is track commissions. Carriers make way more mistakes than we'd like to believe on commissions. And you say to yourself, okay, well, if I wrote 100 cases or 80 or 50 cases, Maybe the carrier screwed up and didn't pay me on 3 or 4 of them, not a huge deal. But over years, because remember, Medicare is a retention business. That's the whole point of it, is the recurring revenue of Medicare. Over the years, you will wind up losing a lot of money if you don't track commissions. So my suggestion is come up with some kind of system to track your commissions, not the renewals necessarily. You just got to make sure that you get initially paid for it. The mistakes once you initially get paid on renewals are very few and far between. It is the initial, getting the initial credit that you're the agent of record on that case initially. So come up with a system and track and make sure you're getting paid on every case you write. Unfortunately, if you do that, you will find the carriers are making mistakes, and if you catch them, you can get them corrected. If you ignore it, and you're in this business for a long time, it will start ending up costing you a lot of money. With all the missed initial commissions and all the missed potential renewals, it'll cost you a lot over time. Trust me on that one. All right, in AEP, if you have a book, retention is incredibly important, especially with a Medicare book. Again, Medicare is all about the renewals. It's not like final expense or annuities where it's mostly front-loaded. Medicare is building a book of business, and it's a book of business, by the way, that's highly valued. A large Medicare book is really valuable and can easily be sold. There's plenty of potential suitors to buy Medicare books because it is a recurring revenue stream and that's desirable. So retention's really important. So really what I would say to people to help encourage you more on the retention side is just take a look. It's easy math and see what the book's renewals are worth. And you think to yourself, well, that's really, if you look and see if you have a book and it's generating renewals and you see what that renewal revenue is, it helps to justify the activity, the work during AEP of bothering to do the retention work. Because those renewals are worth a lot, and those are clients that are already on the books. It's certainly easier, as the old saying goes, to keep something you already have than to find something new. So the first thing I would ask is, did you contact all your current clients? If you don't, you're going to see a huge difference in retention. The numbers vary a little bit, but I think last time I checked, when clients are contacted when you attempt to contact them at least a couple times leading up to AEP, barring strange scenarios, you can expect about a 95% retention rate. Versus a book of business that is never contacted, the retention rate goes down tremendously. You're talking suddenly you're going down to a 60-75% retention rate versus 95. So if you're not contacting all your current clients prior to AEP, you should start doing so. If you have a big book and it's overwhelming, you can do what I had to do at some point, is hire somebody to help you do that. If you've got 700-800, more clients, it's very difficult to make phone calls to all of them, emails to all of them. And by the way, just making an email to them doesn't count. You absolutely should, no matter what else you do, you can call them, you can mail them, you can email them, you can send traditional mail, but calls should go out to them. But if you have a huge book, you can make a script and hire somebody to help you make those calls. Are you running and saving the drug and doctor lists in Connector or Sunfire or Medicare Bot for some of those who use it? There are a lot of agents that don't. With Medicare now, there's tons of clients that want you to rerun their drugs. And if you've got their profile and their drug list saved in Connector or Sunfire, it makes it so much easier to run that. It's already in there. You can quickly just edit if there are any changes and rerun it. And if you're not running drug comparisons on Advantage and PDPs in one of those systems, then you're just guessing basically, or you're unfortunately going through formularies, which is a huge waste of time. So definitely make sure you have them saved in there and run them every year for the clients that want them run. So what's the most efficient way to service all existing clients? That depends on the person. I know some that will make phone calls to all of them, leading up to AEP. Some that will do a combination of emails, mail, and phone calls. I know some agents that have meetings, so they will break the meetings up by the books of business. So if they write, say, 5 different carriers and they have populations in 5 different plans, they will have meetings, AEP meetings for their existing clients. So, usually they'll have the clients come in on that specific company or plan, and they'll ask them to invite friends or relatives to come so that they can retain their book at those meetings, and also they can write new plans that way. And the carriers will help with the cost of running those meetings. I know a lot of agencies that do that very successfully, and it is a pretty efficient method to renew plans. Again, I think we have a question or two coming in. I will definitely answer those at the end for you. So again, after AEP, you kind of get that hangover of working with a lot of people, and some of us tend to want to relax at that point. And I think, the month of January is a month to do a lot of the planning that you need to do. As we talked about, review and plan. It's a great time if there's any additional carriers. So if you're during AEP writing people and you noticed a carrier you didn't have, for example, like I know a lot of people added in New Jersey, added the Braven plan. This is the time to evaluate and add those carriers you might need. Biggest one is people say to me all the time, hey, I'm an individual producer, Ed, and I want to add an entity. So I want to have a corp or an LLC and have my commissions paid to it. And unfortunately, I get a lot of those calls in August, September, October. That is not the time to do that. I can promise you that. If you're thinking about adding an entity because you want to have an LLC or a corp, this is the time to do it, January, February, because it never goes as smoothly as you think. And one quick thing, if you're going to have an entity be paid, if you're going to start, you're going to register an entity, it must be licensed. It has to have an insurance license for it to get paid. Think of an entity as just an extension of you. So if you want to do that, that's fine. Maybe you've been doing business DBA, but now you want a real corp for legal purposes. That's fine. Now's the time to get one, but it's got to be licensed. Here's one of the bigger ones too. I didn't do this for years and wound up kicking myself down the road for it. Keep track of any prospects you didn't write. So you're going through the whirlwind of AEP. You get a lot of cases maybe or prospects where you see people and you can't move them. Well, our tendency might be to just write them off. Okay, moving on to the next one. When in reality, you should track all of them. If you can't write them this year during AEP, track them. Maybe you can write them during the OEP, or maybe they're on a plan that's just the best plan from your standpoint and from theirs. But keep their information, because next year that plan might have a terrible renewal and you'll write them then. Medicare is about building up clientele and building up prospect lists, and that's a really good one to do it. Same thing, maybe you run across people on an exchange plan. They're 63 years old, and you're like, oh, they're a couple years away, or they're 62. Keep track of them. Before you know it, it's going to be time to give them a call. They'll be 6 months from turning 65. You'll have them in your CRM or have tracked them. That'll be an easy sale for you because they'll know who you are. When we're in the Medicare business, a lot of people talk about sales. I mean, I don't think of Medicare as sales. It's one of the reasons I got into it. The Medicare business is really more of a marketing business. How many people through various methods do you get in front of for opportunity? It's a marketing business and an education business. I get a lot of people that say to me, well, Ed, when I get in front of a Medicare prospect, I close them. And I don't say this because it would be rude, but I want to say, yes, most people do. It's really not a hard sale. I mean, it's an education. But the key is getting in front of enough of them. So really change your thought process with Medicare to think about marketing and opportunity and education. It's not really as much of an emotional sale like a different product would be. All right, so enough of me droning on about looking back at your past AEP and what you could do going forward, or what you could do next year for AEP. Let's talk about SEP. So when I say SEP, I mean technically OEP and the rest of the year. As an agency, I can tell you we do 3 times the business in SEP as we do during AEP. We do a lot of AEP business, but most of our agents, or a lot of them, I should say, are big into seminars, do a lot of activities outside of AEP, because AEP for a lot of them is just a time where it's almost a burden. They've got to renew their book. So they really work hard on selling outside of AEP. So the OEP is useful for a couple things. First of all, it's a great time to change anyone you didn't get to during the AEP, or maybe you made those people a last priority, or just didn't get to them for that matter. You're too busy. But that's a great time to make changes to people who, you're busy during AEP, but maybe you got a list of people that are in a plan that could be changed to a different plan. You can do it during that time. Maybe you got people that are in a supplement that's not the best rate now. You might want to change them. So OEP is a great time to do that. With OEP, people get confused about the marketing part of it. You can't market during the OEP using the OEP as the reason. So you can't send out mailers, or you could, but you run the risk of getting in trouble. You can't send out mailers saying, hey, it's OEP, this allows you to make a change. You certainly can market during that time, but you can't use the OEP as a specific reason. And remember, what changes can you make during OEP? Well, you can change from one Advantage plan to another, or you can change from an Advantage plan back to original Medicare, a supplement, and a drug plan. If you were in a guaranteed issue state, which there's 4 of them, I mean all time, there's 4 states that are guaranteed issue at all times. And those are New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Maine. There's some other states with birthday rules. But if you're in a guaranteed issue state, you can use the OEP on a guaranteed issue basis to switch somebody who wants from Advantage back to original Medicare, supplement, and drug plan. If you're in an underwritten state, which is most of them, you can certainly do this, but that supplement will probably be subject to underwriting. So just something to be aware of. So anyway, the OEP is useful. It gives you some flexibility because you got that extra plan change. But what you can't do during the OEP is switch somebody from original Medicare, supplement, and drug plan to an Advantage. That's not something you can do during the OEP. And remember, during the OEP from January through March, you only get one election. Okay, just touching on January again quick, and I know I mentioned this before, but January is the time to be productive. I know I had a couple years there where I just kind of was trying to recover during January, but it's really when we do our best planning. So I have a lot of conversations with agents who they will come to me in maybe June, July, August, sometimes as late as September, and say, well, Ed, what do you think? What am I going to do to write business for AEP or this year? And I want to, the idea is they should have been writing it pretty much all year. And the other thing is that it's kind of late at that point to make AEP plans. You really should start planning for next AEP now, and also, more importantly, planning how you're going to write business every month now, for the rest of 2023. So the first thing I would say to do is come up with your major marketing strategy that you're going to use. Maybe you have a couple of them, but you have one that you need to focus on. That's going to be your big strategy you're going to use. It's going to generate a lot of your activity, a lot of your business, and then we'll talk about the other things you can do to supplement that. But and there's certainly many more things on this list than I have here, but or many more ways people market than I have on the list. But seminars are a big one. So we have a program for T65 seminars. Maybe you are familiar with it. Maybe you've used it. I mean, we're averaging about 50 plus people per seminar. They're all T65s. So seminars you can run year round. Maybe if it's not through our vendor, maybe you've got access to some groups that can help you put people in the seats, because that's the biggest challenge with a seminar. Seminars are a really high close ratio. It's just hard to get people in the seats. That's why we have the program that we use for it. Maybe you do mailers. To me, T65 mailers are the best way to go at this point, but you got to be going at least 7 months or more out. So if you're going to drop mail to T65s that are turning 65 in the next 3 or 4 months, you're going to get a terrible response. Go 7 or more months out on mailers if that's what you're going to do. We have a lot of agents that do live transfers or online leads. We have a vendor, LeadStar, that does those. There's many of them, however. If you haven't done live transfers or online leads, though, I'd say you got to be good on the phone and you got to be set up to do it. It's not something you want to just jump into. You want to do some planning to get prepared for that. And then obviously, tabletop stuff, or as I said, retail is big. Is a main marketing strategy. But one of these things, or maybe a number of others that, some people have RVs, there's various ways, but come up with your main strategy that's going to generate, you're going to put a lot of your time into and generate a lot of your activity with. Other things to do now this time of year is reconnect or connect with your carrier agent managers. So if you're working with 5 or 6 companies, you should have a good relationship with all of them, the broker managers for the carriers. They can help you in a lot of ways. They have access to marketing money. If you think they don't, they do. They can help you with leads, some of them anyway. They can put you in retail locations. Most of the companies, with the exception of the Walmart program, most of the companies, they have retail locations. Those are controlled by the agent managers. And they're the ones, for example, Aetna, They're the ones that can put you in a CVS. So you need to have a relationship to make that happen. Also a good time to think about how you can increase referrals. It's funny, referrals are taken for granted. I know I usually did too. But really, they're the easiest sale you're going to get, and the cheapest as well, might I add. So if you're not getting many referrals, or if you're not getting any at all, think about ways you can increase that referral activity. One of the simplest ones is actually just ask for them. You're allowed to in a Medicare sales capacity. So come up with a good pitch that doesn't seem cheesy. And when you meet with people, whether it's a review or it's a new client, set the tone, plant the seed of them about getting referrals. So asking for them, you'd be surprised how many people don't. If you don't do a referral gift, I suggest you do so. You can do a referral gift of up to $15 for another Medicare beneficiary. So they get your referral, you give them a gift. And the one thing I would say is make sure you follow through on it. We get a lot of people who just don't send their referral gifts out. And if you're wondering, will they increase your referrals? They will. It'll take time, but a referral gift will increase them. And one little tip with that is I was doing $15 referral gifts. I noticed at some point I switched to 10 just to try it if I could be a little cheaper, and it didn't make a difference. So it's not really the amount of the gift or what it is necessarily, it's more the acknowledgement. Track your referrals, see how many you're getting every year. It's good to know, so you can see that your efforts are paying off. And also track all your sources of sales. One of the things I was guilty of, and I know a lot of people are, is they sell, but they don't track where the sales are coming from. And if you think about that, it's kind of crazy, because then if you're not tracking it, how do you know where to put more effort and money into? I mean, maybe you'll wind up putting effort and money into something that doesn't work. So a big thing is track where your sales are coming from. Good time to look at social media, evaluate your website. See do I have a quote engine on there, a quote and comparison and enrollment engine? Both Connector and Sunfire have those already built in, so you can grab that link and put it on your site. If you don't have that on there, you should. If you don't have a website at all, it's time to get one. Websites won't necessarily bring in a lot of new business, but they will help to close a sale. People will check you online more than you think. If you need a website, we can build them for free for people. Look at your email. Professional email makes a big difference. There's still a lot of agents out there using Gmail, Hotmail, AOL.com. I haven't seen an Earthlink in a while, but really having a professional email makes a big difference. So if you've got a website, you can have an email that ends with your URL, like I'm Edward at CroneAssociates.com, and it just does give a different impression when you're emailing people. Take a look at your Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. Believe it or not, Twitter even. They're great places to market for Medicare. I know agents that are on Facebook. They do huge business from their massive Facebook presence. And I personally know a couple that have huge YouTube presences, and they rely on that now for all of their marketing. So set a routine, post content, and stick to it. There's a number of companies out there and sites you can post one piece of content, like Zapier, for example, and you can go on there and you can then have it automatically post that content to all of these platforms. But people do ask me, can you actually generate a lot of business from, say, a Facebook or a YouTube or a Twitter or LinkedIn? You can. I would say Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter more than LinkedIn. LinkedIn seems to be more for if you're working with other professionals, but those other three for sure. Okay, a couple other quick things. Know the basics with Medicare. We see that a lot. If you don't know the basics, learn them. You get a lot of people that just don't know the updated benefits on original Medicare. They also maybe don't know the process to get enrolled in Medicare. So if you don't know the delayed Part B process, the enrollment rules, freshen up on that stuff. All the enrollment periods and rules, all the special elections out there. There's a million of them. I mean, there's states now that are still taking enrollments for FEMA monkeypox, for flood, for various things that don't even seem like they've been around for a long time, but those special elections are still available. Utilize a platform to quote and compare plans. So at this point, I still get a lot of people that are on Medicare.gov. You can't save those profiles. on your own. Utilize a connector, a Sunfire, a Medicare bot. Use one of them. Save the drug lists. Quote and compare plans. I get a lot of calls still from people saying, hey, I've got a prospect in a state I'm not familiar with. What's available there? When the reality is, if they're on one of those platforms, they can just put in the zip code and quickly see for themselves. If you're asking what the best one is to quickly see comparisons of 3 plans and what extra benefits there are, in my opinion, that's Sunfire. Sunfire shows everything, including OTC, transportation, dental, vision, all in one comparison. Very easy to use. Okay, so overall, I see we have a couple of questions, and I'm definitely going to get to those in a minute. Overall, think of Medicare as a marketing business. That's really what it is. It's, how many people can you get in front of, and can you build a brand, and what are you going to do from a marketing standpoint? So again, determine a main strategy, and then everything else you do, you've got your main strategy that's your big driver of business, and then all the other little things you do will be more passive and maybe slower, but if you add them all up, it makes a huge difference in the enrollments you'll have over the course of a year. So the other aspects, such as all the social media, website, relationships, referrals, they're all slow, but if you add them all together, it'll make a huge difference in your book of business, and that's what this is all about. As I said, track and document anyone you may be able to sell in the future. You'd be shocked how many times somebody will talk to a prospect, they can't enroll this AEP, or maybe they're just not old enough, or maybe they're still working and they just forget about them. Stay in touch with those people. Look for other insurance businesses. This is a big one. Look for relationships with P&C agencies, brokers that write exchange plans, group health agents. They can be great referral sources for you if they're not in the Medicare business. Build a relationship with those people, and they can give you referrals all year round. Pay them. Pay them for the referral. You're allowed to pay them up to $100 per case. I suggest you do so. And the biggest thing is make sure you actually pay them and don't make them chase you for the money. That's what blows up 90% of these relationships I see that fail. It blows up because the agent doesn't track it, and the person referring the business doesn't get their referral fee, and they get pissed off and go work with somebody else or give up on it. You'd be surprised if I say 90%, but it happens a lot. It sounds obvious, but it's just something people don't do. A couple final thoughts. Utilize our lead program. If you're not, remember our lead program is good to reimburse you for up to $500 a month for anything you're doing, marketing, advertising, leads. If it's for Medicare, to generate Medicare sales, you can use our lead program. All you have to do is submit us a receipt. It's easy, and it's ongoing month by month. If you want training, watch our recorded videos, our recorded webinars rather, on YouTube, youtube.com, Crow & Associates. We have a webinar on pretty much everything up there. Use Connector, Sunfire, Medicare bot if you're not. And again, if you need a website, call us. We'll build you a website for free. You will own the URL. You get your own URL, but then we'll build the site, put a quote and comparison engine in it for you. So if you don't have one, that's an easy improvement you can make. All right, let's see if we have any questions. So I think I ran a little over. I'm getting long-winded in my old age, I guess. All right, let's see. Somebody said, hi, Eddie Crow. Oh, hi, Jen. That's not really a question, but thank you for saying hi. What are the sites you can use for one post and they share? Oh, I see. Zapier is a good one. There's a lot of them, in fact. If you want, just email me and I can send you some names. Yoast has a few functionalities for that too. There's a number of them. So I could give you a list of a few if you needed that. And obviously my email's on the, you got the email from us, but you can just email me if you want. It's edward@crowandassociates.com. So edward@crow, CROWE, and AND, associates with an S.com. I think that's the only two questions we have. Well, we only had one question. So a statement, which thank you, and a question. It looks like that's all we have. Okay, well, I appreciate you joining me today. Hopefully you found at least some of that a little bit useful. And we will have more webinars next week. And again, please, if you have any suggestions for topics, be happy to to do a webinar on them. So just shoot them on over. All right, that's it. Thanks. I appreciate you attending, and I hope everybody has a great day.